Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dave. I'm joined as always by the other host, Ike. Ike, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm just living the dream. I'm 2-0 with COVID. I've beat it twice, so I
Well,
guess it's another day above ground's a good day, right?
I guess, yeah. Whenever you survive a sickness, I guess that's all right. I don't know if I'd call that living the dream, but it's living something. But thank you, everybody, for joining us and listening this week. Special thanks to our wives for all their support and their help with the research and everything else. This week, we're going to be reviewing Brooklyn 45, which is out now on Shudder and AMC Plus. That's coming later in the show. But before we get there, Ike, besides that, what else did you watch this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So with being sick, I've had a couple of days to watch some TV shows and movies. I would say it's horror adjacent, but I started watching the TV show Manifest.
Oh, yeah.
Um, It's pretty good. It's on Netflix. I think they just finished it up. The whole series is out
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I would say it's kind of horror adjacent because it's kind of sci-fi-esque. And it has kind of an interesting premise that I kind of think is spooky. But yeah, so if you've never seen Manifest, I'd give it a try. It's interesting to say the least. And then I did watch a couple of movies. I watched Influencer, which is on Shudder. It's also a recent release from Shudder.
Yeah,
Honestly, it was.
I
Oh,
watched that last week. Yeah, what'd you think of it?
I thought it was pretty solid. I was really surprised by it. I thought it was. Yeah, I honestly thought I did not see where it was going 100%.
Yeah.
Because they bury the lead just a little bit. They're like, yeah, okay, this is a woman. They take her out to an island or whatever, and you don't really expect the ending that you get, but it's really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. It's one of those weird ass movies that when you watch it and you're like, oh, that's not too much of a stretch. That I
Right.
can see something like that. So that always adds to the creep factor for me when I'm like, man, that shit could happen. And people that get caught up in the online or the social media fame and different things like that it people do wacky things for that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Well,
it was pretty decent.
and I was gonna say, kind of building off what you just said, when I was watching it, it reminded me when I was in obviously I talked about it, but I went on a cruise and I went to Canada, and like I was just thinking like I talked to so many people in Canada, and like, and not to say that they're scam artists, but like how many of those people would have like tried to scam me? That's kind of what you start thinking about,
Mm.
is like, you go to these different places on vacation, like how many of these people are like looking to score off somebody who's who's able to be scammed. It's just an interesting thought process.
Yeah, it's wild.
Um, but also I watched Leave on Shudder. That's also a Shudder original. I don't know why I was into the Shudder originals this week. It was really good too. It was pretty solid. Can't say much bad about it, honestly. It has an interesting premise. It's a little paranormal, a little true crime. And then I also watched The Girl Who Got Away on Tubi. The acting was a little spotty, but it was overall a really good story. It had a pretty good premise. I'd recommend anybody watch it. It's free on Tubi. Tubi's a free service with ads, so I mean, it can't be free.
Yeah. Well, I didn't watch a whole lot. I rewatched The Exorcist. I'm not sure what spawned that. I was just scrolling through stuff and hit it. I guess I haven't watched that in a while, so I rewatched that. Otherwise, I really haven't watched a whole lot. I've been watching a lot of Simpsons again. I don't know. I get in these. I've watched all the way through The Simpsons before. That took a while, but I watched all the way through it just here recently. I've just been, I don't know, just been turning it on when I'm busy because in the background. But
Right.
so I hadn't watched a whole lot this week. But hopefully that'll change this weekend because this is Flash weekend and I'm dying to go see the Flash. Um, not for the Flash, but for Michael Keaton. But there we go. Not horror related, but I'll take any opportunity I can get to talk about Michael Keaton.
If you talk about Ezra Miller, it's a little scary. I mean, let's be real here. They are
Yeah.
they're a little out there, and I totally respect them, but yeah, it's interesting. I feel very bad for them because I know that they're not doing too great in terms of mental health. So, and I was laughing the other day. Somebody made a meme. They're like, "Are they going to feature the woman that they kidnapped in the movie?" I
Yikes!
was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god,
Whew.
yeah, for
Yeah.
real."
It's a
That's hot off the press.
Yeah, I mean it's a rough position when you have a movie like that with that much money sunk into it and it's
Right.
finished and you've already got promotional starting on it and this and that and a lot riding on it and then stuff like that happens. It's like I mean it's a weird position to be in for a company. It's like, what do you do? And
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, are you just supposed to scrap what is? It's a multi-million-dollar movie just out the get-go. I mean, they've already, like you said, sunk all this money into it. I mean, they scrapped Batgirl, so it's like, are they just gonna scrap a whole nother movie that they already have ready to go? Like, and that's the thing what I think a lot of people don't understand. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't agree with Ezra Miller. I don't want to get on a soapbox, but I don't agree with what Ezra Miller did or anything. But you can't fault a studio for wanting to at least make some money. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's their whole purpose.
and it'll be interesting to see what happens coming out of it. So what will happen on the promotional tour? I mean,
Right.
will it just be Keaton? I mean, and what happens moving forward? I mean, it's an odd position. It's an odd position to be in. And I don't know. I know ultimately it comes down to dollars, and sometimes that's not a good thing. But I don't know. I want to see it, and I'm just in my heart. I'm just saying, hey, you're supporting Michael Keaton as Batman. That's what
That's
you're
right.
doing here. So that's I don't feel 100% pure on my motives or on this, but that's my angle. So, but
Absolutely.
I've waited 30 years to see Michael Keaton back as Batman. So I think I'm due that much, but
Yeah, no shame. I'm on the same page. It's one of those it is what it is moments. Hopefully this is what I keep tell people. I've actually had this conversation where I tell them, first and foremost, I'm supporting people who create this film. There's a lot of people who worked really hard on this movie, but
yeah,
also hopefully I'm supporting Ezra Miller. Recovering from what happened. You know what I mean, and hoping that they move on and do better things with their life.
let's hope because that's almost like a real life horror movie there going on. But
It really is.
yeah. All right. Well, before we stray any further from the horror genre, let's get to our segment this week. Two truths and an AI. And this week, Ike, we're back to three truths and an AI. It's been a while since we've done one of these. I believe you're 2-0 now on these. So let's see. These are put together by Monica, my wife. And what this says is we have three descriptions of movies. Two of them are actual real movies, and one is generated by an AI with her prompting. And hopefully each time we do this, everything gets a little better. It gets a little more difficult. We learn each time. So let's see what we can do. Ike, are you ready to play Two Truths and an AI?
I think I am.
All right, here we go. The first movie, the description is a shockumentary which follows Officer Friendly, a psychotic policeman on a rampage of sex, drugs, murder, and other worldly pleasures. All right, so that's your first one.
Okay.
Number two, in the small, eerie town of Blackwood, a series of gruesome murders has struck fear into the hearts of its residents. Two local police officers who have been partners for years find themselves in the midst of a chilling investigation that will test their courage and unravel the sinister secrets of the town. That's kind of a long one. And the third description. A killer dressed in a police uniform begins murdering innocent people on the streets of New York City. As residents run from the horrors of the seediest parts of the city, they have nowhere to turn as they fear the very institution that should be protecting them. So
Okay.
that is your three descriptions. And we have
Well,
a law theme going on here.
yeah. I was so for sure the third one. That's Maniac Cop. Okay, 100%. That's a real movie. I'm just gonna say
Yeah,
that right now.
that's what I
That
was
is
thinking.
pulled straight from Maniac Cop.
It
I'm
sounds like it.
100% confident about that. So the other two are pretty similar. And here's the deal. The other two movies, and you're right. The AI, either the AI is getting better, or Monica is choosing to include some more details, perhaps, to kind of refine the AI, because all of these have pretty distinct details other than the third one. But the third one I know for sure is Maniac Cop, so I'm pretty confident about that one. So the other two, here's the issue. The first one, it says officer friendly, and the second one it says Blackwoods.
Mm-hmm.
So it has distinct what's the phrase? They're
Descriptions, characteristics, names.
Yeah, nouns. They're very distinct.
Proper nouns.
Proper nouns. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Thank you very much. So they have very distinct proper nouns, and so this is where it gets tricky. Do I go with officer friendly? Now, officer friendly doesn't sound like an actual character name. It sounds like a joke. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, hi, I'm officer friendly. You know what I mean?
Not that that's not been done in movies before.
True. That is true. This one's actually getting tricky on me. I don't know if it's maybe my my COVID brain, but no, I'm kidding. Here's where I'm gonna do. I think that number one. I think number one is the fake one. I just have a feeling. I just have a feeling that the first one is the fake one. Officer friendly sounds a little too hokey. The second one, I feel like it sounds familiar. Blackwood sounds familiar for some reason. I could be completely wrong. So my saying is first one is the AI, officer friendly.
All right, here we go. Movie number one, a shockumentary which follows Officer Friendly, a psychotic policeman on a rampage of sex, drugs, murder, and other worldly pleasures. This is an actual movie called Dirty Cop, No Donut from 1999. It is edited with scenes from Dirty Cop, I Am a Pig, to create a DVD release. Wow. Okay, so that is an actual. You're wrong this week. This time you are wrong.
I got stumped.
Number two, in the small, eerie town of Blackwood, a series of gruesome murders has struck fear into the hearts of its residents. Two local police officers who have been partners for years find themselves in the midst of a chilling investigation that will test their courage and unravel the sinister secrets of the town. That is the AI-generated movie. And number three, a killer dressed in a police uniform begins murdering innocent people on the streets of New York City. As residents run from the horrors of the seediest parts of town, they have nowhere to turn as they fear the very institution that should be protecting them. That is Maniac Cop from 1988. That's a fun movie. I like Maniac Cop a lot. But there you have it, Ike. The second was the AI. You were incorrect, as the first one that you guessed is actually Dirty Cop, No Donut from 1999. I have to say that I may have to investigate these movies now and see what that is all about, because those have some derogatory titles there. It looks like it's Dirty Cop, No Donut, and the other movie is Dirty Cop, I'm a Pig. Wow. I mean, let's just get right to it. I'm guessing those were straight to DVD releases. I don't know if those got big theatrical releases, but
yeah, I just looked up Dirty Cop, No Donut, and yeah, it looks like a straight to DVD release.
Oh, so there you have it. Ike is now 2-1 with two truths and an AI. So the apparently, like you said, whether it's Monica's influence or the AI is just growing, we might have a Skynet situation. This might be taken over soon. It has stumped you on this episode. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be having news and upcoming releases. Make sure you subscribe to Listen to Their Screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 and Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com/Screams Shirts.
And we are back with the news. Spread the news. I have
Every
COVID.
episode. Every episode. Yeah, just spread the news, not the COVID.
not the COVID. All right, so we're gonna spread some news, and we have some good shit for you today,
Hey,
right off
hold on.
the top.
But before
What?
we dive into the news, speaking of COVID, I'm unfamiliar. I wonder if this is completely on a side note, but as we brought it up, I wonder if the horror genre has dipped into the COVID thing yet.
Like concept of COVID,
Well,
like
yeah,
as a horror.
not like in the general concept, like specifically, because you always get the low level movies that are feeding off of things. So I wonder if there have been horror movies directly tied to COVID that have been released. Interesting thought.
Hmm,
I
interesting,
don't know.
interesting.
Go ahead though. Go ahead,
That's
Mr.
all.
Cronkite. Carry on with the news.
All right. So starting off at the top, we actually have a pretty good news. We talked about this a little bit either last week or the week before, but straight from Cineverse, Bloody Disgusting, and Screambox, they have acquired Terrifier 3, and they're going to be having a wide theatrical distribution planned. We
Yeah.
talked about this a little bit. Terrifier 2 had a very limited distribution, and that was something that both Dave and I unfortunately suffered with because we weren't able to see it right away. So that kind of sucked. But definitely, I'm glad to hear that the third one is going to get a wider distribution. Hopefully, we'll be able to see it at a local AMC or whatever theater chain that we have at the time. So,
Yeah,
fingers crossed.
we discussed last week because we talked about that Terrifier 3 was official, that it
Right.
was having a bigger budget, that Damien Leone has promised he's staying true to the vision, staying true to the concepts, not straying from it. And then there was the follow up news this week that hey, Screambox, they've which they had the tie to Terrifier 2, right? When it came out streaming, it was a Screambox exclusive, and it looks like that's going to be the case again. And that Screambox is backing, so it'll eventually come to Screambox. But that it'll have a much wider theatrical release, which we speculated, right? We thought with the
Right.
success that it had, the bigger budget, there's no way it should not have a wider release, and it looks like now it's official, and I'm excited because imagine the money it made, the second one made. I mean, what are you going to do with the third one when there's more screens showing this movie? That's exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then in somewhat unrelated news, Lionsgate is reviving the Leprechaun franchise. Warwick Davis is not likely to reprise the role. Not that I'm
Ah,
super surprised by that. But here's the deal. Leprechaun, the first movie, in my opinion, is one of the best B-rated movies. As far as
mhm,
horror movies go.
mhm.
It's funny. It has some cool blood and gut type moves in it, and overall it's not a bad movie. It has Jen Aniston, and it's one of her earlier works. So I have a special place in my heart for the original Leprechaun movie. But with modern technology and everything else, I think that we could have a pretty decent remake on that, and perhaps a more serious take on the concept. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be down for that.
I would too. I also enjoy the first movie. Really don't care for hardly any of the sequels. I'm just not a fan of many of them at all.
What, you
And
don't like Leprechaun Back to the Hood?
no, or In the Hood, or Back to the Hood, or In Space, or whatever. I mean, they put that leprechaun everywhere, and I'm just not a fan. And obviously, Warwick Davis. I mean, he's older. He's not going to be able to do this kind of thing. Hopefully, perhaps there. I mean, I would love to see them give him a little cameo of some sorts in it, just to pay a tribute to him. But here's my thing. This is either going to be it's going to be good or bad, right? I like you. I hope they let's just make this even scarier, right? The take the concept and what you did with the first one and lighten up the comedy even on it and just really lean into the horror and the terror because man, this could be super scary and really creepy and so hopefully they do that, right? Hopefully this doesn't end up falling into where it ends up even feeling like a spoof of itself.
Right.
And but who knows? And hopefully they give it some budget and everything else. But like I said, man, you have the concepts there that to really make something kind of really super scary. And I mean, go with that, right? Let's go with the terror and lighten up the comedy a little bit.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then moving on from news to some merchandise. This is actually pretty awesome. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the video game. I think we mentioned this briefly on a episode a while back, but it is now available for pre-order, both digitally and for physical copy. It will be available for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox platforms at this time. It will launch through Steam for PC at some point. Xbox Games Pass will have access day one. It is set to arrive August 19, 2023, with a price point of $39.99, with a companion soundtrack and album also available. So here's the thing: $39.99 is not a bad price point for a
That is
game.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Really, that's like half the price of games these days. I bought Resident Evil 4 Remake for almost $80, so shit, I'll buy a game for $39.99. Well, shit, I don't have to buy it because I have Games Pass, so I'll have it for free day one. Um, so
Yeah.
I will for sure be getting this. Now I did also hear this is not included in this, and I could be wrong, but I did hear that they are going to do a port to Switch, but it's not going to be a part of the initial release. It's going to be down the road.
Yeah, I hope so, because right now I only have a Switch, and I would really like this game. I suspect maybe $39.99 is maybe the digital price. That it might be a
Yep.
little more for a physical, but which is there. I like to have a physical copy, because you never know, right? I'm even leaning that way now on movies. That I'm like the stuff that I really like. I love my digital, but I almost feel like I want to have physical copies also, just to protect, because streaming stuff and online stuff it's always altering and changing with the rights and services merging and everything else. Anyway, that's a side thing, but anyway, I'm excited about this game. I cannot wait. This is going to be a blast. Uh, any horror games that are based on movies, and especially an iconic movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean that's exciting. I mean, this is
Yeah.
gonna be fun, and it leans heavy into the original, right? This is based pretty much primarily on the original, and man, that's gonna be fun. I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is not in our notes, but I wanted to go ahead and throw this out there because obviously for the handful of people who watch this might be good information for you to have. But on June 8th, it was announced from the Friday the 13th game
Oh
entity
yeah,
that their license was expiring for the content. So
uh,
the license for their Friday the 13th game is expiring December 31st, 2023. And on
yeah,
that date, the game will no longer be available for sale physically or digitally. So that means that if you want the game, get it now. Now the game will continue to function through at least December 31st of 2024 if you already own it. And at this time, they've made the decision to reduce the game price to $4.99 for the base game
yeah,
and 99 cents for each piece of DLC content. And they're going to offer that through the 31st. So I want to throw that out there because I know Dave loves this game. I
yeah,
love this game. If you love Friday the 13th, you probably like this game too. Lots of digital content for this game, which I need to get on top of. Speaking of,
yep.
um,
Me too.
the only thing that I'm going to say that's going to really suck about this is, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not really like a single player mode to this game, is there?
There is if you have the physical copy.
Okay,
You can just do like a playthrough thing on it and everything else. Which I have the physical copy. Which see again, that's one of those things where it's like I sometimes I get nervous not having physical copies on some of this stuff. But yeah, I believe there is on if you have a physical copy. I don't
gotcha.
know otherwise, but yeah, I mean like all that DLC stuff. I got to jump on that. It's all dirt cheap right now, and I'm just like going to buy everything I can. And yeah, so it's a cool game, but it along with that, though, there's already talks that there's another company or another whatever a studio that's going to begin producing a new Friday the 13th game. So that'll be interesting to see what that is. I mean this one is really really great. So well, it'd be curious to see what happens on a new one going
Yeah,
forward. So I mean, obviously someone else is going to pick up the license and everything else. So it'd be interesting,
absolutely. Absolutely. So fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. But at least
especially
for
with
now, go
Crystal
ahead.
Lake coming out.
Yeah.
That could tie into a new game. It could be exciting. But no, I mean, hats off. This is a great, great game. The one that's currently out there, and it's great. It's one of the better TV based horror games that I've ever played,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
movie based.
No, I would definitely agree with that. But Well, all right. So now we have a couple of upcoming birthdays and anniversaries. We have on the 15th of this month, from 1964, we have the birthday of Courtney Cox, who plays Gail Weathers in the Scream franchise, and of course, well known for her role as Monica Geller in Friends. Courtney Cox, of course, is a reoccurring entry, or I should say, entity in the Scream universe. Was in the most recent Scream, and will most likely be in the next
Yeah.
Scream. She's
Now,
like a
see,
cockroach; you just can't kill her.
yeah, let's see, Courtney Cox, right? That's that girl from that Bruce Springsteen video, right?
Right.
Sorry.
Oh, I love it. And then June 16th, 1955, Laurie Metcalf, who plays Billy Loomis's mom in Killer from Scream 2. She's Jackie on Roseanne in The Conners, but more importantly, she is Mary Cooper from Big Bang Theory.
That's right. Yep. She's great. And she's hilarious. Uh, I enjoy her in all those roles. She's a highlight of them all.
I didn't know that was the same person until I started watching The Big Bang Theory, like all the way through recently. I was like, why does that woman look so familiar? That's fucking Billy
Yep.
Loomis's mom.
Yeah, and little known fact, not to stray too far, but in the what's the the prequel series? Why am I shooting a blank on this?
Oh, Young Sheldon.
Young Sheldon, yes, excuse me. Young Sheldon, the one that plays the mom in that, Mary Cooper in that is Laurie Metcalf's daughter that plays her. So
Oh,
it's pretty cool that the daughter plays the younger version of the mom. That's why there's so much resemblance. So there you go.
I never realized that, but that's actually pretty cool though.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. Way to go. Whoever produces those shows, you guys are great.
Yep.
Wow. Well, as cool as that is, we have a couple of upcoming movie anniversaries. These are actually
Big
some
ones.
pretty big
Big
ones,
ones.
yeah. Pretty paramount. So sharing a birthday with Laurie Metcalf, this came out 5 years after Laurie Metcalf's birthday, weirdly enough, on 1960, June 16th. Psycho, it released. That's wild. That's
Yeah.
63 years old. Wow.
Unreal. Yeah. Still a great movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then on June 20th, 1975, we have Jaws. Wow. So that's celebrating what? Its 48th birthday.
Yes. An unbelievable movie. One of my favorite movies. Love Jaws.
Na, na, na.
Yeah.
Um, and then a couple of new releases, completely unrelated to those. June 16th, sharing her birthday with Psycho and Laurie Metcalf. The Blackening in theaters this weekend. So basically, this movie is seven friends go away for the weekend, only to find themselves trapped in a cabin with a killer who has a vendetta. They must pit their street smarts and knowledge of horror movies against the murderer to stay alive. This is starring Grace Byers as Allison, Jermaine Fowler as Clifton, and Melvin Gregg as King. I'm super stoked for this movie. In fact, there's actually a free the Pensacon, the local Comic-Con here in Pensacola. They actually rented out the local movie theater, and they've put up free showings of this movie for a week straight now.
Oh, cool.
And I haven't had a chance to go take advantage of the free screening, which sucks. But I am still going to see this movie because I'm super stoked about it. It looks hilarious.
It looks funny.
But yeah, so that's pretty cool though. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are we at some point reviewing this movie, or is this just something we had on our list?
No, we haven't really said anything about reviewing. We'll probably talk about it a little bit when we watch it, but I don't know if we'll do a full review. Because I don't know if two white guys should be really giving an in-depth review of this. I don't know if we're properly equipped to give a good review of this, but we'll talk about our feelings of it.
That is a very good point. I didn't think about that. Two white dudes reviewing a movie called The Blackening. Oh Lord.
But I look forward to seeing it.
Now this is a movie we could review because this person is, I presume, a Caucasian. But June 13th, Beau is Afraid is available for digital rental. Following the sudden death of his mother, a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic Kafkaesque odyssey back home. This is starring Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Ryan. So yeah, this has got our boy Joaquin in it.
Yeah, this is that. Remember that trippy movie we watched the trailer to? That was so weird and confusing, and I don't know what to make of this. I don't know. This movie is wild. It's like I feel like you got to drop the brown acid before you watch this thing. It looks trippy, and I don't know. I mean, at some point I will watch it, and I hope that when I watch it, I'll be it all makes sense to me. But from watching the trailers, I'm not afraid to admit I have no clue what the hell this is. But
Yeah, my wife said the same thing. She was like, what is this movie even about? And I was like, I don't have the slightest fucking clue what this movie's about, but I want to watch it. That's how I
yeah,
know.
I love Joaquin Phoenix, so
Absolutely, Joaquin Phoenix can do anything. Side note, I'm really excited for what is it? Joker 2,
Joker
Folie
too.
à Deux.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. All right, we have one more upcoming release, and this is a digital release. So this is something that anybody who has a streaming service can watch. We have on June 15th, 2023, Jagged Mind on Hulu. When Billy starts dating a mysterious new girlfriend, she suffers blackouts and strange visions that feel like she's living in the same moments of her life over and over. So that is coming to you straight on streaming on Hulu on the 15th. So if you're not able to go out and watch one of these movies in theaters, you know, The Blackening or any of the other movies that are out there, check this one out. I'm sure it'll be good. We
Yeah,
be checking this out.
it
Go
looks
ahead.
very cool. I've seen some trailer and stuff for this, and it looks like it'd be pretty good. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing this movie on Hulu.
Absolutely. I'll probably check it out too. I'm always down for a good streaming release. You know, at least give me something to watch, you know, when I don't have much else to watch. But, well, all right. So that pretty much does it. Check out these movies. Check out these anniversary movies. Check out these actors, actresses, all that good stuff. And keep an eye out for more news and whatnot on our social media pages. We post about this stuff all the time. But otherwise, let's move on and get right into our review of Brooklyn 45.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, and we are back here on Listen to Their Screams, and it is main event time as we are giving our review of Brooklyn 45, which is available on Shudder and AMC Plus. It is 5 military friends, best friends since childhood, gather together to support their troubled host, and the metaphoric ghosts of their past become all too literal. Starring Anne Ramsey and Ron E. Raines. This movie, it was intriguing, right? And I saw a lot. Shudder's really pushed it, and it's a period piece, right? Set right after World War II. Obviously, the 45 comes from 1945. And it seemed pretty intriguing, so I thought let's dive into this and watch it. Plus, it's got the lady, one of the main lady in the movie was in A League of Their Own, which is
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies of all time. I love baseball movies, and so that's pretty cool. I didn't recognize a whole lot of other people in the movie besides her, but it was very well acted. I will say that right up top. The cast did a spectacular job. And it looked good, right? From the period standpoint, it looked very good, looked very fitting for the time and everything else. And the movie was pretty good, right? It was interesting and it was a good watch. I have a few qualms with it because it didn't, right? There was they did the seance to reach out to the other side and contact what he was trying to contact the ghost of his wife who had recently killed herself, and but they didn't. To me, they didn't lean into the horror and the paranormal much into it, right? It ended up being more of an introspective piece on the real horrors of people and the things they do, and right,
Right.
and it leaned a lot into the horrors of war and what war does to people and makes them do and things and what people have to live with. And while I respect all that and everything else, it kind of threw me for a loop. Not what I expected. I guess I expected more of the ghost stuff. But it was still, I mean, a fairly decent movie and a pretty easy watch. And like I said, it was very well acted. Like, what do you think of Brooklyn 4-5?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one side note, weirdly enough, Anne Ramsey, who you said is in A League of Their Own, is also in a taking of Deborah Logan. She plays Deborah Logan's
Yeah.
daughter, Sarah Logan. Great movie, by the way. But yes, Brooklyn 45, fantastic movie. I honestly really liked how they approached this. I do somewhat agree that they could have potentially leaned a little more into the horror aspect. But I thought it was kind of refreshing how they did. This was basically a horror movie, but they used some of the horror attributes to kind of further a different story. And it wasn't necessarily supposed to be this like knockdown, drag out, balls out horror. It was supposed to be more of a subtle horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
You're right. It was more about that kind of like horror when it comes to the horrors of war, the horrors of real life. And I mean, really, it really does, peak on that because one of the main plot points is that one of the characters is standing trial for something that had occurred during World War II. And what had happened is that he was claiming he was innocent, but during the basically throughout the haunting and the night and whatnot, you basically learn that he is in fact definitely not innocent. He's in fact very guilty of what they're accusing him of.
yeah,
And it's very interesting how they approach this, but also it very much talks about a very real issue that happened in the 40s and 50s was that people really didn't like German people.
yeah, yeah.
And one of the primary premises of this film was that there was a German girl who lived down the road from the host.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me, the host, which was I think was Clive, was it Lieutenant Colonel Clive
Mm-hmm.
something the other?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he was kind of the guy who invited everybody to his house, and there was a German girl who lived down the road. And his wife, who had died previously via suicide, claimed that this woman was a Nazi. And this was very common during World War II. Is that if you sounded German, even if you weren't German, but you sounded like European, everybody thought you were a Nazi, right? You're a Nazi spy. Same thing with like the Cold War. If you look
Right.
anything like a Russian, they thought you were a Russian spy.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
even later with with the Red Scare, and I mean everybody thought that the guy next door was a communist. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of terror, um, kind of a lot of it instilled by the government that
right.
that your neighbor was a spy infiltrating our society. But
Well, and not to get too political and not to maybe throw a huge hot take out there, but even more recently, what everyone thinks of people who believe in the Islam faith. You know what I mean?
right,
If you see a hijab or you see a turban or a burqa or anything that resembles a head covering, people are like, oh, that's a terrorist. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And so it's a very relevant idea that they're talking about. And it's not just exclusive to 1945 Germans. It's very relevant today, yesterday, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
yep,
So with that in mind, this whole story, it's basically, in my opinion, it's talking about some of the hugest issues that we had in the 40s. Basically right after the war, but also it very much does give you a very scary look at you know what haunts you sometimes is not ghosts but your own personal ghosts. And now it's kind of the idea is that all these people have their demons in their closets, and they had to kind of confront them to survive the night. And yeah, it was very interesting how they approached it. I really liked that. I thought it was a pretty good movie. I was very surprised by it because I was not anticipating it to be so good. But then it turned out being pretty solid in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, it played heavily on what people will do in certain situations, right? When they're backed into certain corners, um, even through the party itself, and the one guy who was the whatever you call him, the analyst or the number cruncher guy, right? That everybody made fun of through the entire evening as being weak because he hadn't saw service, right? He wasn't out there, and I mean he was the guy that through this course of this evening killed like two people, right? Shot
Yeah.
like two people and everything else, and obviously kind of freaked his wife out and everything else. But here was this, the whole play on when a person is put into certain situations, they have the capability to do horrific things, and and everything else, and yeah, it was like I said, it was one of those things where yeah, you go in expecting one thing and they gave you something else, and well, yeah, when you take a moment to think about it, honestly, what they gave you can be a little scarier than what you were anticipating, right? Because it's easy to dismiss ghosts and the paranormal stuff because it's easy to say, oh, that's not real, right? If that's what you want to say, and so it's easy to try to dismiss that. But when you talk about war crimes and some of these kind of things, you can't say that, right? Because this stuff happens. And so yeah, it's almost one of those cases where sometimes the true terror, the true horror, the true actions are a little scarier than the ones that can be imagined. And yeah, it was much more a human nature piece than what I anticipated, right? It talked much more
Right.
about than people instead than what I was anticipating. And I don't mean that in a bad way. And again, um, I wasn't familiar with most of the people in this cast outside of Anne Ramsey, but they all did a spectacular job, right? This was a very well acted movie, and it was also very cool that they very well did. Uh, I know that's not properly said, but that it was a pretty much a one location shoot, right? It was all in this one room of the host house. The whole movie. I mean, there was a couple of opening scene and closing scene outside of the home, but the meat of the movie was just a one location shot, right? It was all there weren't flashback scenes per se. There weren't all this other stuff to show different things and whatever else. It took place in this room, but it played on so many different emotions and so many different things, right? The guy was frantic because of the
Right.
loss of his wife, right? He was, and that's a very real pain, right? That and didn't know what he was going to do and how he was going to carry on with his life because of the change and the impact of it and everything else. So I mean, it was kind of a heavy movie,
It
which
was.
I did not anticipate going into it. Honestly anticipated going into it. And again, I had not watched the trailer, had not heard a whole lot of it outside of just reading that vague description. I very much anticipated that it would be a much more comedic ghost kind of movie.
Right.
That's really what I anticipated, and it was absolutely not that at all. So I was pleasantly surprised by it, and well, I was pretty happy that we decided to go with this and watch it. And I think Shudder. I think this is a movie that people shouldn't sleep on, and it should really give a chance.
I 100% agree. And sorry, I was, while we talk, I usually will look at IMDb and look at these individual people and see if I can find anything fun about them. Um, so the character that plays the Major Paul something or the other, he was the one that was trying to kill the German girl.
Yeah.
His name is Ezra Buzzington. And fun fact, Ezra Buzzington was born in good old Muncie, Indiana. Um,
Well,
Look it out. So for people who don't know, I used to live in Muncie, Indiana. I'm from Columbus, Indiana, which is southern Indiana, but I lived in Muncie, Indiana for almost 5 years. So it's very interesting to see that he was born there, which is pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Ezra Buzzington. But
that's quite the last name there.
it is. It is very. It's quite the last name, and it's quite the small world, if you ask me.
I mean, you got a first name like Ezra, and then you follow that up with Buzzington. Uh, that's a 1-2 punch right there. I'm telling you.
Ezra Buzzington. But yeah, absolutely. Back to your point, I 100% think that Shutter, Shutter is really showing up with some of these movies. I mentioned earlier, but the movie Leave was another Shutter original that I watched, and you have this, and Shutter's really put out some
Yeah,
really good shit. I mean,
influencer we talked about.
Influencer, and then what was the one that we watched last year that was really good? The first person one.
Oh, Deadstream.
Deadstream, yeah, Deadstream. Honestly, I gotta say Deadstream is probably one of my favorite found footage movies of all time. But
Yeah, one of our top 5 movies of 2022 for us that we
yeah,
horror movies that we watched. So
absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing is like they're making all this good shit, and they're continuing to make good shit, and they're going to continue to make good shit. And I think that it's only going to get better because I think they're kind of refining their formula, and they're getting a little more adventurous. Because in my opinion, Brooklyn 45 was more adventurous than some of their other movies. Found footage movies are pretty safe. Influencer, it's kind of like a serial killer esque movie.
yeah,
the other movie that I mentioned, Leave, that's more of like a horror movie or more of a ghosty movie. But Brooklyn 45 was very adventurous, I think, in comparison to some of the other movies because it definitely took on a more human and more of a humanitarian approach to horror than it did the pure blatant horror. So yeah, if you haven't watched it or if you're not subscribed to Shudder, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. Again, we plug it all the time, right? I really hope if you're a horror movie fan, and I'm assuming you are if you're listening to us right now, um, you cannot go wrong by subscribing to Shudder and Screambox because they have a lot of good content out there, right? And there's a lot of stuff that you don't find on other platforms, right? A lot of exclusive original content that you're not going to see anywhere else. And it's good stuff, right? There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of gems that are out there that you're not going to see in a theater, and you're not going to see on the major platforms. And again, you can't go wrong with Shudder because, I mean, hell, if you subscribe to AMC Plus, you're getting Shudder as part of the deal. Right. So just go for it all because, I mean, if you're a horror fan, right, and you're into zombie stuff, you get the AMC Plus, you're getting all the Walking Dead stuff with that. So. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a fun movie. It was really enjoyable. It was surprisingly good, and it went, like I said, a different way than what I expected, which is it's kind of that's surprising a lot of times, right? Because there's so often when you anticipate something, that's what you get, and it kind of makes a movie fall flat. And this really was different than what I anticipated. It really was. So before we move on and talk, close things out, let's rate this thing. And then I always go first. Let's let you go first. What are you rating Brooklyn 45, the Shudder original movie?
I am going to give Brooklyn 45 a solid 3.5 out of 5. I didn't think that this was, like a 4 out of 5 movie. It was great, but 4 out of 5 has been reserved for different movies over the last, year or so that we've been doing this. So I think 3.5 is a perfect personification of this film.
Yep, I agree. 3.5 is what I was thinking too. Like we said, the way we rate it, a 3 is kind of a middle of the pack. Oh, that was fun. Just kind of straight ahead. Good watch, whatever. But I think this movie went just a notch above that. But it didn't go so far that it was setting new standards or really raising the bar or anything. That's not a knock, but I would also give it a 3.5 because it was an enjoyable watch, and I really think that it would have a lot of wide appeal to a lot of different people. It's just that there's a lot to this movie, and it was enjoyable. I was hopeful going into it, and I was pleasantly surprised coming out of it. So, yep. And next week, speaking of hopeful. On next episode, I am so hopeful of this because next episode we are going to review Cannibal Cabin, and we gave a little preview of this last episode. This is available video on demand on those platforms and services, and I don't know why I'm so psyched for this movie because just the name Cannibal Cabin. I'm expecting a fun, gory slasher type movie with cannibals. I mean, this has got the first wrong turn feel to me, right? These kids are going someplace, they get sidetracked. In order to continue their trip, they wind up in a cabin with cannibals. I'm telling you, this sounds fun. I hope I'm not disappointed. But tune in next episode to find out if we are. This kind of is one of those movies that sounds like it could be right up my alley. This could be in the Dave sweet spot. And I'm hoping that I am correct in that. Ike, are you looking forward to giving Cannibal Cabin a shot?
I am, but I'm also a little afraid. I don't usually go by ratings on any of these websites, but it's got me a little worried. It's like a 3 out of 10. Now, to be fair, I do like poorly rated horror movies. Sometimes the worse they're rated, the better they are. But I'm hopeful. You know what I mean? I think that it's got some some positivity that maybe it could be good. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna give it a shot, see what happens. Because what's the worst that's gonna happen? It's gonna be a bad movie, and I wasted an hour. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Right now, there's not a whole lot of big releases out there theatrically, so it enables us to do things like this, right? It enables us to dip the foot a little further into the water, and let's see what's swimming a little deeper. And let's see, like I said, Brooklyn 4-5 pleasantly surprised us. Brooklyn 45. I don't know why I keep saying 4-5. It's a year. Brooklyn 45 pleasantly surprised us. Cannibal Cabin, right? Can it walk the fine line of cheese to make us happy? We'll see. Tune in next episode and find out what we thought. But make sure you don't miss that by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast platform. We are on all of them. Look us up there. We're there. And while you're there looking us up and subscribing, make sure you give us a rating and a review because that helps us in all those algorithms, right? It helps us when people subscribe to other horror podcasts and you get that whole you might like thing. If we've got those ratings and those reviews, that puts us up there, right? Where we get more exposure and helps us grow. And that's what we want, right? We all want to spread the network, right? The Screams Network, the Listen to the Screams Network. And let's get us a bigger audience, right? Because the more people that are listening, the more opportunities it presents to us. And we have a lot of things that we'd like to do in the show, right? We have people we'd love to talk to and interview along with our reviews and do different things like that, right? Conventions we'd like to go to, premieres we'd like to go to, bigger screener links we'd like to get. And we can get there if we have your help, and the ratings and reviews will help us grow and help us get there. So just take a few minutes and do that for us if you enjoy what you're listening to. And like I said earlier, follow us on social media because there's a lot more content out there that we're putting out. We a lot of anniversaries, a lot of birthdays, a lot of news that we share on there, and not all of that makes it into the podcast, right? There's a lot of stuff happening day to day, and we're sharing it on social media. So if you want to stay current and stay up to date, hey, we're your source. So make sure you follow us. We're on all the social media platforms. Just look us up and give us a follow on all those. So, Ike, before we close out and get out of here, anything you want to say?
All I gotta say is that again, I'm 2-0 with COVID, so let's hope that's my only two fights with it. I'm tired. I don't like being sick. I hate it.
No, that's absolutely true. You're 2-0 against COVID, 2-1 in the two truths in AI. So you know what? That's we. I feel like we got, like you said last week. I feel like we got boxing rankings going on here, and
For real.
you're climbing the contendership for it all. So all right. So until next week, when we are reviewing Cannibal Cabin, wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.